Welcome to Product Unfiltered, a podcast brought to you by two aspiring product managers in Silicon Valley navigating the exciting world of product management. Join us as we invite amazing product leaders to discuss the latest trend in the industry, share their experience in the product management, and provide insights and advice for those interested in a career in product management. From ideation to launch, we'll cover it all here. So tune in for interviews with industry experts and product managers. I, Rahul Goel, along with Utkarsh Khandelwal, will be your host for Product Unfiltered.
So today we have a very special guest joining us, Shivangee Sabharwal. Shivangi recently interned with Amazon as a senior product manager. She will be sharing her experience and giving us a brief behind the scenes look at what it looks like to work as a product manager in one of the world's leading technology companies. So Shivangi, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Utkarsh. So, I am, like Utkarsh mentioned, I recently interned at Amazon, but I'll be briefing more about my journey till there. I graduated from India. I did a bachelor's in computer science and worked for 4 years as a software test engineer. But I was in that role, I was always on the lookout of problems that I could solve as a test engineer. So I identified problems that were like taking a lot of time for my team members. So that's when I realized that I have this knack of problem solving. So can there be a role where I can do this on a daily basis? Can there be a role where I can like go and find problems, or I can be thrown with problems and then I can handle them. So then I got an opportunity to work on a project. Like basically, it was streamlining the writing of user stories, and that's when I got accustomed to the term product management, and I found it pretty interesting. And while I worked on that project for a while, how to streamline user stories right from what product managers write to what developers and testers consume. That is when I realized that okay, this is something that I would want to do, but at the same time I did not jump to the product role at that. I wanted to see that is that an infatuation, or is this something I would want to do in my career from now on. So I moved my company. So I started with Barclays, where I got this opportunity to work on this project. Then I moved my company. I joined Gainsight. I worked there for a while as a software test engineer. And there again, I did try to find problems that I could solve. And then I was like, okay, this is, and that's when like I bettered myself technically. And then again, I moved to Arcesium. It's a DE Shaw company, and I worked again as a software test engineer, but there I worked more on test tools. And that's when and those test tools that I built were also like what what problems I had found out, and I got an opportunity to talk to the users in terms of the team members that would be using those internal products. And that's when I was like, okay, this is something I would want to do. And that's when I decided to join the Masters in Software Management program at Carnegie Mellon University. And when I joined here, I got an opportunity to work and study with a lot of other professionals, other students that came directly into their masters from different backgrounds, and everybody aspiring to be product manager. And then through the semesters, right, for internships, and then I got a chance to work at Amazon as a senior product manager intern. And then I worked for the devices org for the Fire tablets product. And yeah, that's been my journey so far.
Shivani, it's really fascinating to see your whole journey of how you started as a developer. Then there were multiple instances where you thought you need to enter the product world, but you took the right approach of first analyze the industry from different domains and see how things will work there. Um, Although you mentioned that this was your start where you wanted to pursue product management particularly, so can you deep dive a bit more for our listeners that what was that triggering point when you decided, okay, this is the time I want to become a product manager? And also, can you talk about a few of the challenges which you faced while you were studying at Carnegie Mellon and transitioning to your internship experience with Amazon? Like, how was the transition was like? What are the difficult challenges you were facing at that particular moment?
It was more like I found that to be more interesting and something more that I want to do. Like I'm a person who really likes to dive deeper into stuff and understand what is the problem, can be the various solutions or alternative solutions to that, and then finalizing, okay, what would work well. And I wanted to be in a role where I could face these problems like on a daily basis or new problems every day, so that excitement continues and there is no monotony. And that's when I was like, okay, I should like move to this transition to the product role. And that point in time, I had to like every other aspiring product manager, I had to deal with the fact that as a product manager, it's more like leading a team without leading a team, like guiding all the team members in the right direction to build a valuable product, but at the same time not having that authority to uh, lead everyone one in that manner. And also, if the product works,
Yeah.
it's the team's win. But at times, if products fail, then the product manager has to take the fall. So I was like, I was okay with that, and that's when I decided to move. But yeah, the triggering point was having those challenging problems to face on a daily basis. And in terms of challenges, when I moved from like while I was studying, and then I started my internship. So like we do a lot of group projects to get a hands-on experience of what it is like to work in real life. But when I started my internship, one thing that I had to um, stop myself was not having any assumptions. Like in group projects, we are like, okay, we've spoken, okay, we've interviewed customers, and we've got these problems, and this is what we could do. And at times, okay, we only validate those problems that we as creators feel that, okay, this is the right problem. I'm not sure if you
Hmm.
guys would agree to that, but it happens. There is always a
Yeah.
bias and there are always assumptions there. But when you move to the real world, you have to build something that the customers really want. If the customers do not like something, even if you from your heart feel that, oh, this is the right thing to do, one does not have to do that. So stopping yourself from doing that was one of the main challenges for me. And
Hmm.
as I progressed through the internship, I could manage to do that. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And the other thing is, like, as product managers, one thing that is very important is communication. Now, communication is not just oral communication. Communication can be through documentation, and
Hmm.
documentation is very important in terms of as a like, right now I would try to explain something to you, right? But maybe after this conversation you might forget. So one thing that I can communicate my thoughts to you clearly is using documentation. So
Hmm.
writing that documentation to express oneself very clearly is very important. Like as a developer, we always say, if the code doesn't work, oh, it worked on my system.
Hmm.
Whereas if we
Yeah.
translate the same thing in the PM world, it's more like, um, why, if somebody asks the PM, why do you think it works? Oh, it was,
It
or
was.
why did you make that decision? Oh, it was in my head. So if it was in my head, I have to communicate that very clearly to other people as well, right? So that's
Yeah.
where documentation comes in. So these were the two challenges that I faced, and I could overcome them with time with the help of my seniors and their guidance.
Perfect. In fact, talking about the challenges, one challenge which you mentioned was communication and documenting your work. We know as a product manager, it's really, really important to document and present your work so that all the stakeholders in the process can easily understand what you're trying to communicate. So, Shivangi, how did your master's program at CMU, the software management program, help you in that? And were there any courses which really help you in the overall product management journey?
The reason why I joined the MSSM program was because of the course structure. Because when read the course descriptions, I found them to be exactly what um, would help me transform into a product manager. So in my first semester, I touched upon all the basic aspects of product management. So when I was appearing for interviews starting January, I had that clear picture in mind what product management was about, and what were the main aspects or important aspects of a product manager and their journey. So
Hmm.
I used all of that experience to interview for internship as well.
Perfect. In fact, Shivangi, I'm really intrigued about the point when you mentioned that in your internship, the kind of experiences, the kind of culture which you experienced at Amazon, that documentation culture is something which you experienced there. So can you please elaborate more on what were the exact differences in the kind of assumptions which you had when you started your internship and when you ultimately completed your internship? Because as product management enthusiasts, there are so many things which are in our mind that, okay, in our product management internship, we will be working on the strategizing part, we will be working with customers. But when we actually work, the scenario is totally different. So how was your experience throughout this thing?
So I'd say an internship experience is very much different than an experience of a full-time product manager, right? So because in 3 months, you will not get a project that you would not be able to make substantial progress on, but at the same time, you would be given a project where you also, as someone who wants to transition or you want to gain some experience, can learn. So in my experience, my project was more about a product strategy. But at the same time, 3 months also is a less time to build a product strategy.
Yeah.
So, and it was not that this particular project was specially carved out for an intern joining the team. It, it's more like towards the start of the year, the entire team sets up goals based on what the business goals are, and they prioritize items from that, and then they build a plan for the entire year. Like ad hoc items are there, but then there's a high level roadmap or plan that the team needs to work on, and this was one of the items that I was working on. And to I won't dive deeper into the project as such, but it was more around deciding the life cycle of a particular product, whether to replace it or completely deprecate it or continue it. So depending on what the users need. In my case, the application did not have a lot of data. So I had to go and reach out to users, conduct surveys, high level interviews to get that data. So and then getting that piece together, and then diving, and then not just like trying to find out those answers from directly adjacent teams or say, but I had to go one step further, conduct some kind of experimentation on the app as well to get that data. So, in short, I'd say my expectations were met because I wanted to be, because I wanted a project where I could see that I am making an impact. So, the product strategy that I built, though in 3 months it was not as refined as it could have been, but it was like one step closer to the final goal that the team wanted to achieve. So in that way, I'll say the product strategy part worked well for me. But then there are some other types of internships that work on the execution side as well. In my case, I did collaborate with engineering because since it was a very technical product, I needed to understand from the engineering team, okay, what happened then? Okay, why is this feature not there? Or a lot of questions that engineering team could answer. So, and then the experimentation that I was talking about, that I took help of the engineering team to found out a very optimal and a very basic way to be able to do that in 3 months, because otherwise my internship would have been over and the project wouldn't have complete. So yes, I had to collaborate a lot with the engineering team, marketing team, data data science and data analytics team, and also the and not only the current engineering team. I spoke with almost all the engineering team members in the company at the present, but now working for other products, because those were the people who were there when the application started. So since I did not have that data on the application, I reached out to people who were present at that time for the time which I needed the data. So overall, I'd say the things that really helped me in the internship were thinking from different perspectives, thinking from users' perspective. Okay, if I would have been the user, do I really need it? Thinking from the perspective of engineering team. If we like if we replace the product as an engineer or as a technical team, what are the challenges? So thinking from different perspectives really helped that way.
Shivangi, now we have understood like what was your project like and how Amazon journey's been, but can you also share with our listeners what was your typical day at Amazon while you were interning? Because what happens is, as an aspiring product manager, what I look forward is not just the product which I'll be building, but also the work culture of the company. Whatever benefits and perks do they provide to their employees? So, can you highlight some of the points there?
As an intern, I did not have a lot of meetings because it's the general conception that product managers have a lot of meetings. But I'd say as a product manager who was just starting, I did not have a lot of meetings. I was working with my engineering team in India. So there was this 12.5 hours time difference. So there were times when I had to, like when the team members in India or myself, we had to arrange our sync ups in a way that it's a considerable time for the other side. But yeah, to give you an overall uh, peep into how my day was like. I started in the morning. We did not have a stand up, like PM stand up every day. We had it once or twice a week. Talked about what we've been doing, what are the challenges, and what we plan to do, just like a normal stand up. And then on a bi weekly basis, I did have a sync up with my engineering team and like one a monthly sync up with my engineering team lead just to showcase or discuss about the progress. And these were the two meetings that I had. And one regular meeting, in addition to these two, was a meeting with my mentor, like every day talking about the progress that I was doing on the strategy that I was working on, discussing what moving forward what I'll be doing so that I can get inputs on what would work or getting to know what people like. If I used to say that, okay, I need this information, so I used to get help on which team to contact, which people to speak to. So all of those like continuous daily meetings with the mentor really helped.
Perfect. In fact, Shivangi, as you mentioned, learn and work. So, working at an innovative company like Amazon, it's really important to stay updated with the upcoming trends and what all is going on in the industry. So, what steps did you take during this journey to keep yourself updated? What resources or guides did you take throughout this journey?
When I decided to move into product management, I started with very basic TM, like basic TM concepts. So I followed product school. Like they have a lot of documentation on different types of on different aspects of product management. And then I followed a few books by Lewis Lynn, Decode and Conquer, and Product Management Interviews. Like these are the basic books that anybody reads who wants to move into product management. And actually these books were really and those and the product school resources were like my guiding principles throughout because these were what helped me build my basic PM foundation. So every time I had a question in mind, okay, this is what I have to do, like, and I needed some reference, I always bounce back to these. And after revisiting those basic things, I then searched more on what needed to be done. So the product school has a newsletter, and TechCrunch also has a newsletter, right? So I subscribe to both of these. And most of the bigger organizations also work as smaller startups. So every product is a startup of its own. So a lot of the startup concepts apply to these product teams as well. So there, the TechCrunch newsletter really helps.
Like as an aspiring product managers who are about to appear for a lot of interviews and applying to a lot many companies now, LinkedIn becomes a very important platform in the whole journey. So can you give some tips and tricks to the aspiring product managers who are in the phase where you were last year, how to navigate through LinkedIn and use it to the maximum of your potential?
I use LinkedIn a lot to apply to jobs, and I did get a good number of calls through LinkedIn. So what I did was basically I set up LinkedIn alerts, and that's when a role was posted. Now those are a bit delayed, but whenever the role was posted, I did get an alert, and I used to apply right away because now applying right away can mean that I did not change my resume for every job description, right? But that is also very subjective. Like for me, I transitioned from an engineering role, from a test engineering role. So for me, a lot of things would not change in my resume. Whereas someone who's coming from like who has a lot of experience, they would have something to change onto their one-page resume every time they apply for a job. So in my case, I had a resume where I had put everything in a way that would fit multiple job descriptions, and I applied as soon as possible because most of the companies, when they get a good volume of applications, they stop taking new applications as well. So if I enter that chunk within the first few hours or days of that internship being opened, I substantially have a good chance to
Mhm.
get an interview call. So that was one thing that I did. And the other thing that I did was I searched with a couple of hashtags like hiring, product manager hiring. And so I got a list of all the people who are hiring for product managers, and then having a conversation with them, reaching out if they were hiring for interns. And if not, then just having a casual conversation as to when they hire a PM, what do they look for?
So, and Shivangi, like we talked about, how can one upskill oneself with the help of all these blogs to get into product management? You also shared some strategies about applying to these jobs as early as possible through LinkedIn alerts. I know one another important aspect of applying to any product management role is practicing those product management interviews. So how did you went through this practicing session and which prepared you for your PM intern at Amazon?
So when I had to prepare for my Amazon interview, the first thing I did was I wrote all my answers. Like so Amazon, so every company has uh, some interview pattern that we get to know from the recruiter once we are starting. But Amazon, as we all know, they have their 16 leadership principles, and they judge us on the basis of that. So I tried to build my stories around those leadership principles, wrote them, and then I asked a colleague if they could have a mock interview with me. And when they heard my answers, they were like, "You divert so much. You are talking about so much things that are not needed." So when you in my head, those were brilliant answers. Like everybody has those, right? Oh, these are the best answers I could write. But when somebody else hears them, they have a lot of like positive criticism, and that one should consider, they are because they are those people who have not been in your shoes, so they are hearing your experiences from another perspective. So that really helps. And then I did take all those comments and I improved on those comments. But then I got a bit scared, so I instead of practicing with another person, I practiced in front of the mirror. So, because what happens is, like, there are two types of people. Like, people can talk to some other person for hours and hours telling about their stories, or people get a bit anxious in sharing their stories, or if they're mock interviewing for the first time. So, it's always good to talk to yourself by looking at the mirror. So, you'll see how you look when you're talking, if you're making some kind of weird expression. That and so all that really helps. So these two things work for me. And when I gained confidence, like Amazon, I interviewed for Amazon in Jan and I got it. But then I did give a few interviews that were lined up before I got the Amazon results. And that time I did ask my colleagues to take mock interviews. I did ask a couple of product managers who have been in that role for a good number of years to have a mock interview, just to get those comments and feedback. And getting that feedback is really important. Doesn't matter what the other person is, if they are your colleague, if they are a product manager who's just starting, or if they are a product manager who's been in the role for a good number of years. Everybody thinks from a different perspective, so getting all of those point of views and feedbacks and working on them are really important. So you never know which of those feedbacks might coincide with the hiring manager's expectations, and you might just ace it if you work on them.
Totally agree with you, Shivangi. I guess peer learning is something which really helps us a lot, and that's the way forward. Learn from your peers because at the end of the day, these people are the ones whom you're going to work with. So you need to understand everyone's mindset. So to bring the podcast to the end, we'll just like to ask one more question from you and try to see like what type of advices do you have for other product managers who are looking to improve their skills and advance in their careers?
I'll maybe break down this answer into two. One, people who want to transition into product management, and the others, people who are just starting into their manager journey. So people who are transitioning, right now, product manager is that buzzword, is that go-to career that everybody wants to try, right? But before doing that, I feel everybody should analyze themselves whether they are a fit for that particular role or not. Because sometimes people don't want to code, so they're like, oh, let's move to product management. Now, that is not the right thing to do, because when you are in a role wherein you are in the execution part, you are always solution oriented. But then when you become a product manager, you have to be more problem focused and problem oriented. So you will have to see what kind of person are you. Even if you are in any role, when you get a problem, do you ask why it is a problem, what is the impact, or why do we need to do it now? Or you are a person who straight away goes to thinking about how we have to solve this problem. Now, if one can analyze in which bucket they fall, they'll easily be able to gauge themselves whether they should move to product management at that point or work on that. So I'll say first to analyze oneself, and then once people plan on moving to product management, they should take some kind of time every day to read the basics of product management. And when they can see that, they can understand what the basics are, and then they can resonate that with what work they are doing currently. And if they feel that there is a thing in that, then they should think about moving. If not, they should take time. Like, I myself took 1.5 years to gauge myself, to analyze whether product management is the right fit. So that's why from those learnings, I'd always tell people to first gauge themselves whether they are the right fit. And people who are just starting, um, just like technology, product management is evolving. There are different ways to solve problems. There are different ways to reach out to users, understand their needs, and provide value to them. So never stop learning, and those learnings can come from anywhere. They can come from um, academics, or like courses that are taken by experts and product managers who've been in the industry for a while, and they impart learnings. Or they can be they can be from learn and fail. You do yourself, you fail. And then the third aspect is like, to get more hands-on experience, people do a side project. So it's all, so if you have a problem in mind, there is no harm in diving deeper into that problem, understanding customer, like just following the entire product management journey, talking to customers, validating, seeing how it goes. So that also gives that real time experience. But yeah, overall, it's more like never stop learning and do what you feel is the right thing for you to do.
Totally agree with you, Shivangi. So I think this is a good point where we can end the podcast for this episode, where there's a lot to take from this particular episode. For me, few pointers which I really want to take forward from this podcast would be to understand the power of your peers. How do you learn and grow along with them? And then obviously when we talk about Amazon, their leadership principle, something which sticks with all of us as a product managers. So thank you so much, Shivangi, for taking out time and sharing all these insights with for our listeners. I'm sure listeners will learn a lot from this, and this will help them to move towards their career paths. This brings us officially to the end of today's podcast episode. Hope all our listeners have enjoyed it and the discussion has helped them to learn something new today. I will request all the listeners to stay tuned for more such exciting episodes. Thank you for tuning into Product Unfiltered.